Job Hunting
101.
Providing you with the tools you need in your job search.
Career fairs, resume writing, job banks, veteran programs.
Job Hunting
101.
And we'd like to welcome you back into another in a series of Job Hunting 101. My name is Dale Green, Career Manager at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance, and we'll be talking today about identifying the right job for you. At the outset of the program, I wanted to advise you to please get a pen or pencil and some paper, several pieces of paper, because you want to take notes. We have a couple of subject matter experts. They're called SMEs. We have Karen. I'll let Karen formally introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Karen White. I'm the Vice President of Florida Technical College and the South Computer Learning Center. And I have a little bit of experience in law enforcement, 12 years, and 8 years in higher education, helping individuals to move forward in their educational goals and their career goals.
Okay, and Bob Bailey's is Career Manager at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance.
Yes, you did that very well, Dale. Bob Bailey's a Career Manager at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance, absolutely.
Yes. Oh, I took your thunder. My
That's
gosh.
all right. That's all right.
That's because I work across from you. Isn't that something? I said I wasn't going to do that. But anyway, I wanted to find out, first of all, about career planning. Let's go back to you, Karen, and talk about your journey, if you will, from how did you ever get, what a career change.
Yes.
What a drastic career change. Law enforcement, first in New York, then somewhere
In Georgia.
in near Atlanta metro area, and now to Tampa.
Right. Well, you know, one of the things that I recognize is moving forward in life, period. There are going to be some situations that cause you to make some radical changes in your career. And one of the things that occurred for me is I went from law enforcement to higher education because my mom got sick. So things like that were life, and moved down from Georgia to Florida. And when that happened, I had already started my education as a law enforcement officer, working on a psychology degree. And then I went into staffing for individuals and clients that wanted individuals coming to their companies for various industries. And then fell into higher education because I did such a very good job with matching the individual with the company and its culture. So I just happened to fall into education, but I was already pursuing education for myself as well.
Right. And you're still on that journey.
Yes.
You enlightened me that you're going on for your PhD. We'll be calling you Dr. White pretty soon.
Yes, sir. And just once you get into a career, you know, and you find that you're passionate about that particular area, it's very beneficial to go back and get some education relevant to that career, because you want to be the subject matter expert. You want to have those research tools to provide to the individuals that you're serving. And so because of that, organizational leadership in higher education is very important to me, because everyone is a leader. Everyone is.
Right. Bob, you've come a long way from a criminology major at Florida State University in Tallahassee to work for the State Comptroller's Office, and then now at TBWA. Tell us about your journey.
Well, my journey actually is kind of interesting. When I graduated in FSU back in '76, you know, with my criminology degree, I was a welfare fraud investigator in Miami, moved up to be with the Comptroller's Office. Subsequently decided that maybe state government wasn't a way to go, and I kind of ventured out into the private sector. Became an insurance agent, and did a number of things as far as marketing specialist, and then came back. I was a social worker for DCF and finally the compliance officer for the Housing Authority over in Pinellas County before my journey of opportunity started back in 2009. I often say that if, with my journey of opportunity, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be a career manager with TBWA, I would have said you're crazy. As simple as that. But it's funny how life kind of treats you in different ways. I found myself after a year of my journey to looking for that opportunity, and TBWA provided that. And I really dove into it, and I can tell you I have such passion to what I do. I enjoy watching my candidates develop and grow and find themselves. And we don't have any magic here, as you and I well know as career managers with TBWA, and I'm sure Karen knows as well. It has to come from within the individual.
Yes.
The passion has to be there.
Right.
Yes.
How do you both had downtime. You both had to relocate to different places.
Yes.
Karen, how do you start the process of trying to identify certain career goals? Like where the question often comes up in an interview, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Right.
How did you retool yourself, rediscover yourself?
Well, getting to know yourself along the journey, being in different careers and opening yourself up for opportunities of growth right in a specific career allows you to get to know what your capabilities are, finding out your passion, as we keep mentioning, and then now you start to research. So using different types of tools, assessment tools that help you to determine your skill set or your personality, because personality is important. That's where the passion comes from. So that's some of the things that I did. When I was studying for my psychology degree, I was introduced to those kind of things. I was introduced to different websites that I could go on and do more research about who I was and the attributes that I already had, how that could transfer over to different career settings as well. Because there's a multitude of career settings in different industries that you could transfer over that passion and that education to.
Right. I both want you to comment on ONET,
Yes.
the ONET system, and then My Next Move. Tell us about those as career guiding plans.
Yes.
ONET, as a career manager, it is an awesome website. There are not a day that I go by that I don't meet a candidate that I recommend ONET. ONET, where you can put a occupation, specialty occupation name in and get the task, the work, the requirements as far as learning is concerned. It is a wonderful, wonderful website. And I introduce that to my candidates as a means to help them develop a good resume, a resume that an employer will look at and say in the 8 seconds that they look at a resume
Right.
and say, hey, I want to talk to that person. Now let me see the next resume, because I got 150 of these to go through and I only want about 10 or 15 people to talk to. And ONET just lends itself to that.
Right. How candid should you, are there any right or wrong answers, I guess I should restate that, on an assessment tool? I mean, can you fake it till you make it, or should it be realistic?
It should be very realistic. Just like Bob has mentioned, when you send someone to ONET, first of all, ONET is written by IO psychologists, industrial organizational psychologists, that work with the Department of Labor, and they have researched and done extensive studies on task, knowledge, skills, ability, technology. So when you do an entrance profiler, okay, to determine who you are, there is no right or wrong answer. It is who you are, and that makes you feel, one, comfortable about now diving into some of those areas that are specific to task or specific to a career that you feel comfortable with based on that interest profile.
Right. What about those people who have self-doubts? They take the assessment, and I don't know, I might be biting off more than I can chew. What about and I also want to talk about Myers-Briggs personality test.
I think to a great extent what I do as a career manager and what I see in the individuals that I talk with is that the first thing we do, and I think you really nailed it on the head here, is that you bring to that individual a start of self-confidence. Because many of them come in with maybe having a career for a few years, or maybe having a career for a few months. Right. Either way, they lack the confidence of, can I really do this? Can I really make this journey in this leap of faith, as we may want to call it? And that's what I do in regards to what I do as a career manager. And ONET, in a sense, kind of helps the candidate say, okay, this is what you did back a couple of years ago. Let's see what the tasks are. Because I don't remember, you won't remember, they don't remember exactly what it is, and kind of puts it there, and oh yeah, that's what I did, and let's tweak it to this way or that way.
Right. Karen, we were talking earlier about the learning curve. How much of a learning curve should a new hire expect to be given? I mean, yes, you have your 90-day probationary period or a 6-month probationary period. And I guess if you have these transferable skills, then it's almost like, well, I haven't ridden a bicycle in 5 years, but once I get to pedaling, I think I can ride this bicycle.
Right. Well, I don't believe that you really should give yourself an extensive time frame, but I also do believe that you should be realistic. Transferable skills, say on a resume, if you're applying for a position, you have to have the skill sets that are capable of doing the job that you're going for. So you already have that level of experience there. So there would be a minimum time frame or learning curve for that. But then you have to understand there's a lot of other cultural type things that you have to face in an organization, how they do what they do. So that is where the learning curve is at, and a leader or a manager that is hiring you will understand that and will be able to define your learning curve for you, and you need to be open to that, but also be very, very interested in learning as much as you can, as quickly as you can, because at the end of the day, performance is very important. So I really believe that individuals should be realistic about what they already know how to do, and then also understand that they should rely on their manager or supervisor to provide a time frame or goal for them that they can work within that time frame to learn everything that they need at that new company.
Right. What does it mean by being a quick study, a quick learner? Is that something that somebody should brag about?
Yes.
That they're a quick study, that they can catch on fast?
Yes, absolutely. Because any company that you go to, the bottom line is service. And for most companies, there is a level of making sure that there's a quality of customer service that's provided, and that learning curve can disrupt that customer service, the quality of customer service provided by that company. So ultimately, wanting to brag about being a quick learner, that you're task-oriented, that you have very comprehensible skills. When someone directs you to do something, you know either how to do it right away or know what questions to ask. That minimizes the learning curve.
Right. Bob, you weren't in the military, but you're a military brat, and you probably heard your dad say something about adapt and overcome.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very important, I think, for our candidates to understand that employers in today's market want to know what you can do for them. What we just discussed and what Karen just mentioned is very true with an employer, is that, yes, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that task is done. And as a candidate, what I try to do is prepare my candidates not only to go to those employers and present what they have a skill base at, but also with the attitude that I can do, and you need not search any further, Mr. Employer, because I am the best of the best.
Right.
I bring a lot to the table.
Bob, have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality test?
Probably years and years ago, and then I think everyone kind of got exposed to that in one fashion or another.
Yes.
Right. Karen, tell us a little bit about the intricacies of the Myers-Briggs personality.
Well, it really defines 8 different personality types. Basically, you want to determine for yourself if you're introverted or extroverted, and that's based on energy. You know, what kind of level of energy do you give out? When it comes to perceiving information, as you mentioned, just comprehending being comprehensive of the information given to you, perceiving that information properly, that's either sensing or intuition. So sometimes you may have the right intuition about what your manager is saying because you've had that skill set already, and now you're just tweaking it to what the manager is asking you to do, or sensing it, which is kind of on a more emotional intelligence side. Makes decision, that's another personality where you're either a thinker or a feeler. So that's important, because depending on customer service, you know, if you're a problem solver, then you need to be a thinker more than you need to be a feeler. If you're someone that is working in a hospital, then you need to be more of a feeler as well, because you're dealing with that individual, that patient that needs some kind of emotional contact or interaction. And lives his life judging versus perceiving. again, that is all relative to how you make the right decisions, whether you are going to be perceptive in the way that allows you to do the job properly or go to someone for the answers. So this personality test, it's a fairly
it's a pretty good tool.
Yeah, it's a fairly good tool to use. Some people have to have someone that is already a psychologist to really sit down with them and break that down to them. But if they get it through an assessment tool where they do it online, that information will come in kind of a summary, and they're able to then read the summary and find out a lot more about themselves.
Right. Bob, if somebody asks you, were you able to multitask, or are you a team player? You yourself in your job, but then also advising career candidates, what would you say?
I think in today's market, we all need to, as candidates approaching new positions and new opportunities, have to be able to multitask. We have come from a society of Father Knows Best, where we worked at the same company for 30 years. Right. We kept our jacket on when we had dinner, that we didn't move around a lot, to where I think the average time of a person being on with an employer is somewhere between 2 to 4 years, maybe even a little longer. But the point is that you get into a position where you want to develop your skills, and being a multitask, it's no longer, Dale, this is what I need you to do today. It's, Dale, this is what I need you to do now. And by the way, by 2 o'clock, I need this. And all of a sudden, you're now on 2 projects or 3 projects or 4 projects. And as part of what we do as career managers is to work with candidates who may not have that skill down as well, and to work with them to reflect that they can do that. Again, a lot of what I say to my candidates, and I say this very honestly, finding a job in today's market is really attitude. How you feel about yourself. And
yes.
The other is luck and skill. Very small portion of it is luck and skill.
Right. I wanted to delve into something we talked about earlier about the company, the agency, or I'll just say the company you work for, Karen. You've got I-4 covered. The I-4 corridor covered. How can people reinvent themselves and get that here and now job? How can they prepare for that through some of the offerings?
Well, basically, when you look at reinventing yourself, and Bob hit it on the nose too, talking about attitude, a lot of individuals, because of the career transitioning that they may be facing, sometimes it is about attitude, because the employer can teach you the technical skills. So if you were to come to our organization, we could provide you with the technical skills. Most colleges can provide you with the technical skills. So when you would come to an organization like ours, we provide you with the technical skills, but the soft skills, which are the interpersonal skills, the attitude, the desire to reinvent yourself, meaning looking at what's out there, what are the companies asking for, researching what position you're interested in, looking at the requirements of the positions. And one of the things that I recommend is doing what we call an informational interview. An informational interview allows you to go to that company that you're interested in and ask them to allow you to sit down and ask questions about the particular position. That makes you more comfortable. It allows you to reinvent yourself. And even before going to a vocational school or a public college, you might have that opportunity to know exactly whether you are going to have that passion to work in that company or not before you even spend the time and invest the money into education. I believe that that would be a very good way to start. But once you get into a college or technical school or whatever you're going to use as a training tool, attitude is very important in reinventing yourself, because you have to be very open and humble about the fact that you're now transitioning. And so everything that you do have is a plus, but you want to add more to yourself.
Right. Getting back to the analogy of riding a bicycle, Bob, if they threw something at you and say you had to be a fraud investigator again, could you do it?
I think so. Those skills that you acquire over your lifetime are skills that you really have. It's like
nobody
can
take them away from you.
That's right. It's like the candidate who came to me and we were talking about a resume, and he had worked as a forklift operator at Lowe's, got a certificate at Lowe's. And when I was developing his resume, I said, well, why don't you put that on your resume? Well, he said, it was 20 years ago. I mean, there's, why have it? I said, you need to put it on there, and what you can do is say certified forklift operator, parentheses, expired, end of parentheses. You've alerted your employer or your potential employer that you've had that certification. You know those skills, you have that skill set. Maybe you don't have the certificate at this point in time, but you've been down that pathway before. And I think that's a lot of what we do in regards to candidates. I see a great blend between what Karen does and her organization and what the TBA does in regards to what we do, because we bring candidates up to where they're starting to believe themselves. And if they want to take that leap of faith and they want to go into a new career and they have the potential and the burning and the desire to do it, then her organization certainly poses itself that we can work with that and see if that's a potential possibility. One of the things I did with a candidate of mine was she was in audiology speech pathology, and she couldn't get a job because she had a bachelor's degree, which kind of surprised me. And she was really frustrated, and I said to her, why don't you go and volunteer at a audiology speech pathologist's office, walk in there and say, I just want to work 1 or 2 days, keep my skills kind of sharp, and that. She did so. In about 6 weeks, they offered her a position. She said, but I only have a bachelor's. And he says, doesn't matter. We've seen your work.
Right.
You know, you've got an opportunity to volunteer. You've got an opportunity to keep your skills sharp and straight, but yet expose yourself to a potential employment opportunity.
Right.
Excellent.
Karen, do you think that you can still arrest somebody?
Yes.
And I say that to say that, you know, talk about the transferable skills.
Right.
You might not be doing that in your day-to-day job now, but there's a certain authority,
Right.
representation that you do, learning how to negotiate.
Right.
Let's talk about those transferable skills. How important are they? And for you, you talked earlier about bragging on yourself. I say that whatever is pertinent for the job,
Right.
bring it to the table, bring
Exactly.
it into the discussion.
Exactly. One of the things that I do when I go to the different campuses and I'm speaking to the students, which I love the students so much, and it doesn't matter what age they are, I love the students. And I talk to them about the fact that you have to have a level of confidence that speaks volumes. You know, getting back to that introverted, extroverted type person. So I'm an extroverted type person, and because of that energy level, that came from law enforcement, that came from the authority that I had there.
Did that remind you of talking to youth groups
Yes.
during your journey as a law enforcement
Yes,
officer?
the students that were in schools, we adopted schools when I was in law enforcement. We go out and speak to them about different types of things like bullying and gang-related issues. And those children, when they saw me on the street in patrol, they would have the cards that I had given them. And it just secured this. It almost made like this underlying brotherhood with, although I was a police officer and they knew that they might get in trouble one day, they knew that I was there for them. And so that interaction with the young folks is what transfers over to me working with students now. They know that I might tough love them and say, this resume, we need to tweak it. We need to bring out the best up at the top and bring the awards and certificates you have here and, you know, move around with the resume and play with it a little bit. They understand that tough love. And so they're willing and open to listen to the recommendations that I give them because of that command presence and that tough love that I exhibited many years ago. I won't
You
say
become
how
sort
long
of a product of your environment.
Exactly.
Sir, please stop. I need to see your ID or whatever like that. Strengths and weaknesses. How would you both, I ask both of you to respond to this, try to narrow down your strengths and weaknesses? I guess your relevant strengths and weaknesses. You have to be candid. If somebody asks me, say, well, what are your weaknesses? I take my morning break, but somehow I don't get around to taking my afternoon break. That's a time management issue, which I have to work on, but you can't take my break for me.
Right.
Only I can balance and take my break.
Right.
I think strengths and weaknesses in individuals are really a true balancing of a person's nature. I think they interplay with one another. And when I'm talking to candidates in the program that I'm involved with, our REA, we ask that question. What are your strengths? What do you bring to the table? What are your skill sets that you bring to the table? And we can identify the things that they feel they are have a real potential for. But at the same time, we also want to ask them certain things such as, what is your goals, short-term and long-term, education and employment? Often that brings out a weakness in regard. I really want to start my business, but I really don't know how to do it. I really want to change a career, but I'm really afraid to do it. I'm not confident in what I do. Well, let's open some doors of opportunity here. Let's look at the different programs available through TBWA or from vendors that we can provide you and get you involved in, or simply a call. Give them the confidence to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm interested in that. What do I need to do? I had a gentleman this morning, for example, did not have his GED, had a real passion for helping people. That's what he really wanted to do. He was 23 years old. And I could have very well said, oh, you don't have your GED, it's not going to happen. I said, you have a passion to do it. You have a real strength there. What we have to do is we have to cultivate you to get your GED. Maybe that's the first step, so that your dream of 10 years from now will occur. In that helping people, being involved with people. He'd been in prison, had jobs, all sorts of things that occurred with him. And yet, I could have very well dismissed it, but that's not my nature. I want to be able to work with people like that in their strengths and weaknesses.
Right. Karen, how do you balance answering that question about strengths and weaknesses without beating yourself up on the weakness part? Right. So and so and so, but I'm not computer, because we often hear that, but I'm not too computer literate. But right. You do bring something to the table. How do you balance? That's quite a balancing thing, isn't it?
It really is, because, as you're working with students in my organization, they're already coming to our particular school because they've been told what they can't do. Mm-hmm. And so you have to inspire them and teach them how they can do it. What I look at is, Bob's done a great job with talking about strengths. When I look at weaknesses, I usually don't use the word weakness. I usually use the word area of opportunity. What are your areas of opportunity that we can develop? And then we go from there. So, for example, the volunteer work, I preach that religiously. Volunteer work, as soon as orientation, before they're even starting school, their class on a Monday, I'm speaking about find 5 organizations that you would be passionate about working for and volunteer. What happens is those are areas of opportunities that develop their weakness without them even knowing it.
That also helps to make up for gaps in employment.
Yes, it does.
And that looks good.
Yes.
That looks good on your resume. We're going to be talking with Karen and Bob when we return from the break about areas of trying to find that specific labor market information in Employ Florida and other areas. You have to do a little research. You have to be willing to learn some things about the area that you're going into. We'll be back in just a few moments to continue our discussion here on Job Hunting 101.
The Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and WorkNet Pinellas offer workforce solutions designed to improve your business.
I've really valued my relationship with WorkNet Pinellas and have been instrumental in keeping us informed with new educational trends.
We've really seen our employees grow in their own personal development. It has not only exceeded Power Design's expectations, but our employees' expectations as well.
To learn more about our no-cost programs and services, visit workforcetampa.com or worknetpinellas.org.
And we'd like to welcome you back to Job Hunting 101, identifying the right job for you. We have as our guests on the program today, Karen White and Bob Bailey's. Karen and Bob have done a great job, and we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And hopefully people have been writing things down. I want to talk a little bit now about that labor market information. Labor market information can be gathered from so many sources like Employ Florida Marketplace and other places. And I guess that's really, Karen, research on what's hot, what's not,
right,
in terms of jobs and careers. What is hot? What's not?
Well,
from your perspective.
From my perspective, what's hot is, of course, technology, information technology, dealing with computers, also allied health. The medical field is not going anywhere, especially here in the Florida area where we have individuals that come down to retire. And so looking into the medical field is very important. But if you go to Employ Florida, that's a really great resource tool to find out like what are the jobs that people are looking to fill, what are the positions that people are looking to fill, as well as ONET. ONET will provide you with not only what's happening now, but even a projection of growth. So in that particular position, what's the percentage of projected growth? Also the percentage of salary, like what percent will make, 10% will make this amount of salary, 50% of the people will make this amount of salary, 70% will make this amount of salary. So when you go to those different tools, Employ Florida or ONET, you're going to get a valuable amount of information that will allow you to then identify the right job for you.
Bob, how would you respond to a candidate who says, I'm looking for work, and you ask them, well, what was specifically would you like to do? Or anything. Mm-hmm. Do they really mean anything, or it should be anything specific? It should be something specific, should it not?
And yes, it should be something specific. But again, you're dealing with some people, candidates that I deal with on a day-to-day basis that are frustrated. Mm-hmm. They've been on unemployment now 90 days, some even longer. So they want to grab whatever they can grab. But the labor market information under EFM I use pretty extensively with my candidates because it gives them a real feel for what that occupation, what that particular job is. In Hillsborough County, what's the mean in salary, what's the beginning, what's the experienced. It also kind of breaks down, and in Employ Florida at least, here are the skill sets for this particular job, and here are related jobs that have similar skill sets. And guess what? It also gives you the opening in those jobs. So the EFM, Employ Florida Marketplace, is really, really excellent when it comes to labor market information. We collect a tremendous amount of statistical data, and just to expose the candidate to that takes away, well, I don't care, I do anything, Okay, but what would you like to do? What is your passion? If you could do anything in the world, if I had this magic wand and I could just wave it over to you and you would be whacked right into that job, tell me what your Disney job is, what's the job that you really, really want to do. Let's look at that. And let's go to Employ Florida, to labor market information, see where it is, see what the skills are, see what the tasks are, see what education you need. Is that the commitment you want to do for that job? Well, maybe not, okay? Then let's look at some related jobs. And that's where I think the labor market information starts to shine above everything else. And that both in ONET and especially Employ Florida Marketplace.
Right. There are services for individuals on the quick menu on the left-hand side. Florida Fred, Allison Online. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good information where people will just start to click on those areas and find out more how they can help themselves. How important is it to, besides the labor market information, to just read like the business section of the paper, talk about the green jobs and up and coming things and the skills related to that? How important is that to read even Florida Trend, Tampa Bay Business Journal, and those publications?
Exactly. Because first of all, the economic development commissions, they're primarily in all of the local city environments. And so they are the ones that have the pulse of the city. So if those agencies, along with Business Journal, where a lot of that information is filtered into the Business Journal, if you're looking at the Business Journal and the other newspapers that provide you with that information, I mean, you literally become an expert at your own job hunting. You become an expert at it, and you're able to then help and identify not only a job for yourself, but individuals around you, because a lot of times, if you're frustrated and tired of looking for positions and, being out of work, you probably surrounded by some others that you can really help as well. And I think that it'll have a ripple effect that is going to be beneficial and positive. So definitely looking into the business journals is a great way, a great tool to help you with becoming an expert on finding the jobs.
I think if I can dovetail on that for a minute, Dale, is that I think also candidates, we get to the point, I'm exposed to many candidates who are unemployed. Most of the candidates that I see that are unemployed, and they get so frustrated. Got to find a job. Got to pay the mortgage. I'm just so focused on finding a job. And I say, if you look for a job, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you will go nuts in about 3 weeks. And that you've got to schedule yourself out, and this point of seeking out information through various journals, and that is an excellent way in order to broaden that perspective of what you're doing, at the same time still looking for a job and convincing yourself that's just as important to read that article, to look at those the business journal or the magazines or the newspapers, etc., as it is to get on that computer and keep applying for the job. Schedule yourself up. You know, I'm going to spend 3 hours on the computer, then I'm going to walk away. And I'm going to do something different. I'm going to recharge those batteries, whether it's cooking donuts or cupcakes in the kitchen, mowing the yard, or reading an article in today's journal. I'm going to do something that's not related to finding a job and making an application, and then come back.
What about taking a part-time job and then going to school part-time?
That is an absolutely excellent idea. Again, you know, those transferable skills can become rusty. And so if you can keep a part-time job and go to college, that's going to benefit you even more, because again, that gap that you talked about before, Dale, where you're filling in those gaps of employment. There's been resumes that we've had our students create, and when we have what we call an advisory board, where we have, you know, anywhere from 15 to 25 employers from the different industries, we give them the resumes because we want them to critique them so that we can provide that information back to our students. And a lot of them will say, well what happened for the last 12 years? You know, so then what growth? Where's the growth? You may not have been working in the field that you're trying to get into now, but where is the growth? Every time you're working, you're growing, you're growing, you're growing, and you got to keep that in mind. You don't want to just sit still, and even with applying for the jobs, like Bob said, changing up a little bit. The business journal helps you to grow. Everything is about growing so that you can become a more competent and more competitive individual once you get that interview for that right job.
Right. When it comes to taking stock of your skills, I mean, I could put on my resume in terms of the objective, looking for a financial analyst position with Waste Management Services in Temple Terrace, Florida. I can be very specific, or I can have 8 bullets up there that has it where I'm taking or putting down 8 skill sets or 8 skill summary. How important, without seeming to be too braggadocious, should you, and not knowing, quoting everything in the Tampa Bay Times or what have you, you want to be able to temper that with answering the right questions at the right time with the right amount of words and not going on and on and on.
I think today's market,
like I've done,
that's true.
That loaded question.
I think in today's market it's very important to use the bullet point aspect on resumes. I think to be as succinct as possible, but also as complete as possible. What you want to do is intrigue the employer in the 8 seconds they're looking at that resume, that this is someone I want to talk to. The resume gets you to what I often refer to as the last 3 golden feet, in that you can do nothing in this world with another individual until you enter into that last 3 golden feet, where you're looking in their eyes. And I learned that when I was a Pru agent, in that I could go and market anywhere in the world. I could go ahead and try to get as many prospects as I want to, but until I entered into that arena of 3 feet, I couldn't sell them anything. And that's true as far as an employer is concerned and a candidate is concerned. Until you can get in front of them and be able to talk to them and sell yourself, it's very, very difficult in order to land a job. It's not, I've never had a candidate send a resume out, get a call the next day and say, gee, Dale, we saw your resume, can you start working tomorrow?
Right.
And that, speaking of that, when can you start work? If somebody asks you that question, Karen, how should a candidate answer that question? Should they be
immediately?
If not sooner.
If not sooner.
Right. So, because I heard that come up at the workforce one day, at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance at Workforce Tampa Career Center, and the employer said, "Here's the address, and I need you to show up for the 11 o'clock shift tonight." And the candidate had to backpedal. See what had happened? Well, can we? No, it's over. You have to say, I can start on Monday, July 16th, however, a suggestion of answering that way. However, if you need me sooner, I can be there.
Right.
So if you say what you mean what you say. If you say it immediately, that means when can I start?
Right, and it shows commitment. And we talked earlier about the fact that, you know, loyalty, long-term positions, that individuals are staying in, that's kind of gone away. Well, employers don't want that because it takes a lot of time and money invested to retrain. So you're already demonstrating your level of commitment to that company. Right when they ask you, I need you to be here at 11 o'clock, can you be here? You're already demonstrating the level of commitment. And going back to something that Bob said about the 8 seconds that they look at the resume and those transferable skills. Those transferable skills need to be such that it tells a legacy about who you are. And if the resume is not succinct, then you're telling the employer, you don't even know who you are. And attitude and commitment and loyalty and transparency can be seen in a resume right away, especially for the employers that have been doing this for a long time. Because myself, when I was in law enforcement, I was assigned as a sergeant to the Office of Professional Standards. That did all of the recruiting, selection, hiring, reading tons of resumes, and then identifying that, okay, that resume matched with how the individual interviewed, and then the interview matched with how the individual worked in the first 90 days and how they progress in their employment with the police department.
Wow. Well, Bob, if you said that you can start immediately, if not sooner, what about that dental appointment?
Well, I think
How do you, what do you do about that?
I think what you have to do is you have to come in with an idea of when you're going to start. Yes, you're very anxious getting back to the job market, but you may have some commitments. My wife's going in for surgery. My mother's in the hospital right now, and she needs me. I've got to go out of town because I'm moving a sibling down, whatever. So you have some commitments. Be upfront and honest with it. And then I think an employer appreciates that. Right. Yes, an employer wants to have someone that, to work. But they're also making, and you made an excellent point here, that they want to have someone who is committed and they're willing to accept that. And I think it's very good. I think if we can go back for a minute, when you talk about part-time employment, and you mentioned that earlier, I think it dovetails into our next topic dealing with marketing. And then I think it's an excellent way to get your candidates out there on a part-time basis where they can market their skill sets. They can show potential employers what they can do. And marketing is the ultimate of getting someone back to work.
Right. And one of the ways to market, I guess, would be networking. Would networking not be a first cousin of marketing?
Oh, yes.
Karen,
Absolutely.
I've hit a button. Tell me more.
Get me excited about professional networking events. Again, the employer knows that if you've gone back to college, you have technical skills, but they don't really know who you are as a person. And a professional networking event allows you to show your professionalism, allows you to show mannerism that is not always dictated in a resume if the employer is not as keen in reading that kind of information on a resume. So exposing yourself to an employer at these professional networking events, that's a plus. But also going back to part-time work, volunteer, letting them know that you're willing to learn, that you're open to their company, and the biggest piece, if you've researched their company already and you tell them a lot about themselves.
My gosh, click on About Us, contact us, in addition to jobs and careers. Let me see if I got the scenario right. Working part-time, in other words, getting off of unemployment, working part-time, let's say 29 hours a week, volunteering 10 hours a week, and then going to school 10 hours a week. That, for a short period of time, even if that job is a survival job, can make one better in terms of taking stock of their skills and retooling.
Yes.
Ramping up.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
I as far as professional networking group, and I have to toot the horn of TBWA. When I came aboard in February of 2010, some 2 years ago, our professional networking group was somewhat challenged in that because we dealt more with blue-collar individuals in that, and we were really not ready to handle the white-collar candidates coming in. They're coming in with an attitude, I'm going to be unemployed for 6 weeks, I got my severance pay, I'll be back in no time. All of a sudden, we had a whole group of people coming in saying, I've been 7 months without my, employment. I'm on my journey of opportunity. I myself can relate to that at 7 months, being without an opportunity. And our professional networking group has really started to dynamically change. And I am just pleased as I can be. I had the pleasure and the honor of talking to the professional networking group at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance several months ago, and they have now started bringing in employers that deal with white-collar professionals. They started dealing with individuals in white-collar occupations and really starting to help them. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity that's happened at TBWA, and it shows the growth of the organization.
Maybe we can volunteer. Ask Karen if she can come on.
Absolutely.
They're on the website, www.workforcetampa.com. Click on candidate services, and it's every other Tuesday.
Yeah, from 9 to 11.
Sure,
Right.
sure,
Excellent.
that's a good thing.
Excellent.
Networking, will you be willing to do that, Karen?
Yes, I would be willing
Put
to
you on
do
the
that.
spot.
Yes, I'd be willing to do that.
Taking stock of your skills. Also, when it comes to wages, in other words, you've been making $40,000, and now the best that's offered is $33,500. Well, that's a big dip. But while people are going back and forth, I've heard some employers say, "Would you step aside, sir?" Because there are 29 people who will take this job for 30,
Right,
without blinking.
right.
So wages are down. Wages are coming up a little bit, but wages are generally spread, and profits are up.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is something that I face a lot with students who are now, they could be either career transitioning, so coming out of one profession into another, and that's why they're there for the education, or they could have been completely unemployed, making $40,000, and now they want to become, say, a medical assistant, and that, those average wages are a lot lower because you've never been a medical assistant before. One of the concerns that we address with them is saying, well, obviously, if you've not worked in that position before, you want to get your foot in the door. That is a very important aspect of being successful, and we've already mentioned that, and I'm sure just kind of really nailed into part-time jobs, volunteer jobs, or whatever. But that entry-level pay may be very realistic for the economy, and that's where all this labor market information comes into play as well. So the more knowledge that you build up from everything that we've already discussed will have you have more of a realistic expectation. And you're right, there are 29, 30, 40 others that are willing to take that lower income because they never had the opportunity in the first place. So you really need to become very realistic about where you are and what your position is right now, and can you afford to stay without working, because you're looking for that $40,000 job as opposed to a $33,000. I mean, you have to take realistic stock in yourself and where you're at.
Well, sticker shock would be unemployment, the rate of
Right.
unemployment.
Absolutely.
So do you want to work a 20-hour-a-week job and a 25-hour-a-week job just to make ends meet,
Right.
and stop your drawdown of unemployment benefits, or what, Bob?
Yeah, I think the candidates really have to, and what I tell them is, be honest in regards to what you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
That is your bottom line. If I need to have $30,000 a year in order to crack that nut of mortgage, car insurance, car payment, et cetera, I'm not going to look for a $25,000 job. Why should I shoot myself in the foot? At the same time, don't go in saying, well, I need $60,000 because that's what I used to make. Be somewhere realistic between 40 and 60, and then be able to market yourself according to that idea. Again, I myself, to be very honest with you, when I was departed, when my journey of opportunity started after leaving the Housing Authority in Pinellas County, in coming aboard here, I took a significant reduction. But I had an idea that I wanted to get back with the state. It took 2 years for me to get back to the state. Am I at the same salary I left? Almost. But I'm back to where I want to be. I'm back to what I'm enjoying and doing. Right. I'm back with the state. My retirement is growing. My benefits are there. All things considered, yeah, I took a step back salary-wise, but the journey has been wonderful.
I think determination, sheer determination. How bad do you want it? You want it so bad that you'll juggle school and volunteerism. School doesn't have to last forever.
Right.
It's a certain, it's really to get from point A to point B.
Exactly.
Credentials. Let's talk, when we talk about take stock of your skills, you know, your volunteer, if you've had a variety of volunteer opportunities that you've taken advantage of, that shows a little bit about your hunger
and your character.
And your thirst
Yep.
to try to make the world a better place. And if you can talk about those you talked earlier about feeling and about those feel good kind of things, I'm contributing to society, that's more than just pie in the sky, isn't it?
That's right, it's excellent. And it's a great way to market yourself. You know, really marketing yourself. Again, employers know that they have a learning curve with you, technical skills that you have. The character is the most important thing to an employer because they can't give you that nor teach you that. You have to already have been exhibiting that in some way, form, or fashion. And so all of these things that we've discussed about researching and getting more knowledge, going to college or going to a training program that intensifies your competitiveness, having the right attitude about volunteering or doing part-time work, and being realistic about who you are, what your growth is, your growth capacity is, and where you're at right now. All of that pulled together, that is a fabulous way to market yourself to an employer.
Right. Now, all of that doesn't necessarily belong on a resume, does it? In other words, you can put some of that in the cover letter.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you can articulate some of that when the
you
questions are asked. Isn't it let's talk about that elevator speech, because that's the end result of taking stock of your skills and marketing yourself. Being able to talk within 40 seconds to tell the who, what, when, where, why, and how is, who's your worst critic, Bob? Do you talk to yourself in the mirror?
Yeah,
Do you practice before you come on this TV show?
No, well, sometimes. You know, on the way over here we did. But I think you're absolutely right, Dale, in regards to the elevator speech. And as a candidate going out there looking for an opportunity, you have to be able to express what you bring to the table, what you can do for the company, and who you are in that 40 seconds. And I think our vendor, you know, here, Karen will attest to the fact that when a candidate comes in and wants to be part of her school, they want to know what that candidate is doing.
Right.
And develop a plan for them as such. If you don't know who you are and what you bring to the table, how do you expect me to hire you as an employer?
Wow, that's pretty well spoken. You have to, so I guess you could say, put the shoe on the other foot. Right. Why should I hire you?
Why? Exactly.
And you say, let me count the ways why you should hire me.
That's right. And then that's when you brag in those 40 seconds. And you don't brag in an arrogant way, but you brag again in a very humble, transparent way. It shows that you know who you are, you know what you can do, you know what you're capable of, you know what skill sets you bring to the table, what expertise level you have in the technical skills. Just because you just came to college doesn't mean that you're not top of the line in that particular technical area. And so having, you know, I go back to the college, having perfect attendance, having a high GPA, being on the dean's list, being on the president's list, all of those things speak about your character, and it all comes back to that. Character is the most important aspect of who you are, and that can come out in 40 seconds and just blow the employer away.
Absolutely.
Right. Someone's character can be detected by the way they present themselves in the first impression. First impression, whether it's white collar, blue collar, no collar, skilled, semi-skilled, professional, paraprofessional, you have to, by what you wear and the way you carry yourself, have to make a good impression. Karen, if I came to you and I'm interviewing for a job at the college, and I ask you for a pen, doesn't that show that, it's a no-no?
You can't even come to my workshops without a pen, let alone go to a job without one.
Well, why don't you tell me exactly how you feel about that?
Okay, I mean, really, it's about being prepared. It's about how much do you want this? When you come to an employer and you don't have a pen, that says something again about your character. How much do you respect the time that I'm taking out of my day to interview you? How much do you respect our company that you would come unprepared. No, that really wouldn't work for me. It doesn't even work at my workshops. If they come without a pen, I ask them to retrieve one, find one, come back in, start all over. Let's work this one out.
Wow. Bob, little did you know when you rolled over here to the studio with me today that just before, on the sun visor, I had something that dropped down and was a pack of 8 thank you cards. And I was looking for them the other day and I couldn't find them, just to share with candidates. How important is thanking the interviewer or ers? Could be more. Could be a panel of 2 people.
Right.
How important is that?
It's essential, and I will tell you that going back to, I had a candidate who worked for the post office, retired, and we were talking about that today. Sending a thank you note in the mail, snail mail, by a stamp, and that probably does more for the candidate and the employer than an email. Emails are regular, they're expected, you're going to do that. But thanking the employer for their time, because that's an element an employer understands, in dollars and cents. Right. Thank you, thank you, Dale, for the time that you spent with me in discussing the potential of being a customer service representative with your company. That is powerful, and that putting it in paper, putting it in a thank you note, sending it by mail, wraps it all up into a very positive type of experience.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm so old school. I can use a postcard. Postcard, because they have to open. Well, postcard is double-sided, but a thank you note that comes in the mail, you have to get a letter opener or scissors or something to open it. Karen White has been our guest on this portion of our program. She's Vice President of Career Services at Florida Technical College, easy for you to say. But you all do a lot, and I thank you for coming on the program to share all of the breadth and width of all the things that happen. And Bob Bailey's, better known as Friendly Bob, at Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance, you all have really you too have provided a lot of good information to our candidates. Here's hoping that candidates will take advantage. I guess in closing, I'd just say that it's really all about creating a success story, is it not?
Yes, it is. A legacy.
One success story at a time?
Yes.
Absolutely, and I think that's the main part, is that success comes with passion, and I have a passion for what I do. I know Karen has a passion certainly for what she does, and if you can instill that in a candidate, they will find an opportunity out there.
Wow, and you are success stories in yourselves. I mean, your journeys, fraud investigator in insurance, and then law enforcement, and now you're working on organizational management. I mean, the preparation makes you ready. It's really job security.
Right, it is.
How important is that? How much should people retool and tweak their careers to make sure that they are ready to answer the call or the challenge?
I think candidates need to evaluate themselves periodically. Again, I had an opportunity presented to me. I certainly wasn't in the market for it, not for the year that I spent, but it was a humbling experience. It truly was.
To say the
but
least.
You know what I did is I took those opportunities that I experienced over the 12 months, and I have reformed them to make them exciting times and connect with my candidates who also are experiencing some of those humbling experiences.
Right. In 30 seconds, Karen, how important is it to keep your body language positive?
It's absolutely
during an interview?
It's absolutely imperative, because we want you to know, the employer. We want you to know, I'm here, I'm positive, I'm going to make this happen. Give me an opportunity.
Right. Karen and Bob, we certainly do thank you for being on our show today. We thank our viewers for listening. Almost about to get them mixed up with the listeners, but they're listening and viewing at the same time. We thank you so much for sharing this information. Thank you. I've learned a lot myself. And I think this whole job hunting series is very good for our listeners.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and WorkNet Pinellas offer workforce solutions designed to improve your business.
I've really valued my relationship with WorkNet Pinellas and have been instrumental in keeping us informed with new educational trends.
We've really seen our employees grow in their own personal development. It has not only exceeded Power Design's expectations, but our employees' expectations as well.
To learn more about our no-cost programs and services, visit workforcetampa.com or worknetpinellas.org.